Well, at this point, I believe we can open the questions to the audience. I'll probably repeat the questions for the microphone's sake and for the audience's sake in case you couldn't hear the question, and let you guys have at it then. Okay, yes?
For Bob and Lisa mainly, when you talked about the actors or the crew going from non-union to union, just the question is, are union members, crew, and cast and crew, are they free to go non-union? If they're members of a union, can they
Not really.
go against the union?
Okay, yeah, the question is, are there, union-related questions. Is the union free to go non-union, or do they have to work union? So.
Well, it's a tricky question. Just to give you a little background. In Hollywood, our cast it was SAG, so it was a union cast, but SAG has low budget rates. Our actors made a fraction of what they make on other movies, but it's very difficult to make a movie like our movie without SAG actors, especially if you need anyone over the age of 25. But traditionally, it used to be if you were under 7 million back 10 years ago, the union never bothered you. And then it was 2 million.
The crew union never.
The crew
bothered you,
union,
and that's
IATSE.
IATSE.
Yeah, and they didn't bother you because the thing is, voices, you need to be able to make a movie for very little money for new voices to come up through the film business. I mean, I would love nothing more than to make a movie that's got every union in Hollywood working on it and with the money to make that movie. I just haven't been successful enough to afford that kind of budget. I barely was able to make my second feature after 10 years. With a first feature that was pretty successful, opened at Sundance and still is on TV once a week. So that's just the reality. I mean, I tried to raise $7-8 million. Lisa and I both did. For 5 years to make this movie, and it just wasn't going to happen. And so once you decide to go forward and you take this giant leap of faith and you invest all of your time, Lisa and I have never been paid for this movie. I mean, nothing. There are grips that made many, many times what we made on this movie, will make.
When the crew unionized, that was where you look at your budget and you think, okay, what can we do without? And it was Bob and my salary and post-production, thinking we'd be able to raise that money. We weren't able to successfully raise all that money. And then there were certain things where we knew we'd have to take a hit. But what we originally had was we had some union members of the crew and some non-union members decide that they wanted to work on our movie. And we actually built, for the most part, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 people, a talented crew and people that believed in the movie and said, you know what, we really like the story. We know you guys don't have a lot of money. We want to work on this. It was also on the eve of the writer's strike, or it was during the writer's strike.
During the writer's strike.
So there wasn't
there was
lot
no
that
other
was
work.
Filming.
Yeah.
So it was right before Christmas. People were like, you know what, I would rather work on a movie and I would rather get paid and be able to get paid before Christmas. And I'm a union member, but I'm going to do this non-union. Now, they don't tell their union that, and no one, by the way, tells anyone to make a decision other than that person. So that person decides that under the radar, they're going to work on a project. But if their union finds out, that's when their union reps show up. Just like in any industry that has a union, their union reps show up, and then there's picket lines. And so halfway through our shoot, one person on our crew of 60 or 70 or 80 people decided they were unhappy, and they let it slip to somebody in one union. I think we had 12 or 13 crew unions that comprised of all of our crew on the set. And then the next day, 12 different union reps showed up on our set, and then that puts all of the union members of our crew in a really tricky situation. If they don't cross the picket line, they get fined, they could be in trouble for future work. Makes the people that are not in a union suddenly go, oh, well, I think I want to be in a union. And I don't have enough days to be in the union, but if we turn the movie that we're working on union, then suddenly we all get to be in the union, or that's what they were told. See, they get told one story, and then they would call me when the movie finished, and by the way, now I'm out of money, I can't finish the movie, and they would say, oh gosh, Lisa, this union rep told me that I was gonna be able to be in the union, but now I'm short 10 days. So we turned your movie union, but I'm still not union. It's like, then I'm sitting there going, okay, so our movie turned union, and for what? You know,
Right.
it's like, now we don't have a movie that we can finish, so all these people that worked really, really hard may not see a movie for 2-3 years, and these people that thought they turned the movie to become union still aren't union. So they're, on a certain level, you got a bunch of people that are saying different things to different people, and now everybody was getting the truth. But we literally had them all sitting on set, and we were down for 2 hours. And I was sitting there going, I have like 9 days to finish a movie. I've already lost half a day. I have to decide if I'm just gonna like make a deal with the union so that Bob can get out there and finish the movie.
Well, and it was Christmas. We had to return
And it
the
was
equipment
Christmas.
before Christmas, and so it really, like,
We
really, it
would've
was our
lost-
back was against. They
Yeah.
they picked the right movie to.
We
to
would have
turn
lost
union.
actors because once
Yeah.
Christmas happens, you're not gonna get everybody back again. It's like you have to make that decision quickly, like, okay, we'll take the hit and we'll figure out how to deal with it quickly. But nobody wants to be faced with that situation, not when you're dealing in pre-production, trying to plan as best as you can. Suddenly, like, something happens, just like anything happens. I mean, I would not liken it to a natural disaster, but it's like when all your best laid plans, you know, are over, you figure out a new plan, which is what we did.
Yeah.
That's a long answer to your question. I wouldn't say they were free necessarily to work non-union. It's a decision everyone has to make for
But people
themselves.
work union and non-union in that in the trades, in show business. You know, they go back and forth. It's not untypical.
Okay, over here.
So then, is it more strategic to go into the process, understanding that your budget is driving your story, or your story is driving the budget? Because it almost seems like you have to dance between these two parameters of what you wish you could do and what you actually can do. And so how does that affect the creative process
Okay.
in coming about with your script?
Okay, yeah, so how does the budget affect, this is for the microphones, I'm sorry. How does the budget affect the creative process, story versus budget, budget versus story?
Well, people who make $100 million movies will tell you they face the same issue. Bullshit. Bullshit. When I promise not to whine about that if someone even gives me a $10 million movie, okay? Let's start with that. But isn't that, in a weird way, it is always kind of true. You know, you make the best movie you can make with the resources that you have, and really with the talent that you have, you know, and I don't mean talent's another word for cast, which actually is also true, but really it's the talent, your own talent, you know, it's going to grow. You're going to be able to, you know, the minute you're done with the movie, you know how to make it better. You know, but it's too late. You know, you got the movie you got, and that process is, you know, you just have to throw it into the next one, really.
But is the process kind enough to let you try again when you know that immediately what the mistakes were, what you could have improved?
It's like having a baby, they say, you know, but you know, by the time you forget how difficult, I don't know. I'm not. What am I saying? It's crazy stuff for.
But on a low budget movie, there aren't a lot of try agains. So that's why preparation is so key. You kind of have to before you even start hiring people, and then once you begin starting to hire people, figuring out as many different scenarios that could go wrong, figuring out exactly how you want to do things, and being prepared for how to react in those situations, because you have very little time. You don't have a lot of time, you don't have a lot of money.
There also is a strange alchemy of independent filmmaking, and I think it's true of any art, that the things that you have to give up, you know, from your white-knuckled grip, oftentimes lead you to a better solution. And, you know, for example, we have an opening credit sequence. You know, it was a hard time starting the movie, and we, my editor, Matt Cassell, and I came up with this brilliant idea to use footage of celebrity murders, and our composer composed this beautiful theme, and so we had Robert Blake and Lana Turner and O.J. Simpson. Not that any of those people are necessarily guilty, but you know, and it was awesome. And so Lisa loves it. She's like, "Oh my God, you've done it. You figured it out." Right. So we go, well, we'll just get a stock house and we'll license this footage, and we're cooking with gas. It would cost more money to license the footage than our entire movie cost. Yeah. And you know, pulling hair, it's perfect. We have to have and eventually we realized we could do opening credits, you know, and And I got a guy from my swim team, Nathan Hatch, posted the credits to a video game he had done the graphics for, and I call him up and was like, hey, you want to do credits on a feature? And he says, sure. And, now we have an opening credit sequence that we're all very proud of, and I actually would argue opens the movie in a better, more effective, and certainly more creative, which is really what happens, and more original way than, a montage of celebrity crime scenes, although really it was a lot of fun.
I agree with you about how sometimes when you can't afford something and you think you're settling for something that you originally didn't want, oftentimes that turns into be a better idea than your first idea was. Maybe because you've had to really think about it more, like you had to be more inventive in the process of solving that problem. But I also think sometimes things that you think are going to be very expensive end up not being expensive. Like I've had many situations where my instinct was wrong. Like I'm actually shooting a new film right now, and I thought shooting in an airport was going to be outrageously expensive. It's not. You know what I mean? Like so, like sometimes it's in Chicago.
Wow.
$25.
O'Hare or Midway?
$25.
O'Hare.
Whoa.
Get ready for some movies coming
That
out.
is
about
location
O'Hare.
gold you guys just got. That is a great tip. That is a fantastic tip.
The O'Hare in Chicago?
Yeah, well, they put you in the international wing that they don't use. They have a part of the international wing that they don't use. So you're going to have to bring in your own extras and all that. But
By the way, it's cheaper for them to fly to Chicago to shoot at O'Hare than it might be for you to use an airport here.
so, like, yeah, there's certain things that you just never know until you actually investigate, and then you're like, wow,
And that's where doing a few movies helps,
Yes,
because every time you
exactly.
do a movie, you bring that experience with you.
Right.
Since all of you will be making dozens of films, I'm sure.
In O'Hare.
At O'Hare.